Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our final Critical Agrarian Studies Seminar Series 2023, the 10th one in this year. So today we have two brilliant speakers, activists and our close friends, more than that. In fact, it's funny that we actually planned to start this series at the beginning of this year with Rashmini, but due to various reasons, we could not take them on board. But here we are, finally, they are here. So welcome to our SSA Critical Agrarian Studies Seminar Series. So this will be the last seminar in this year. So today, Rashmini and Chatu are going to speak about the role of women farmers in upholding food security in Sri Lanka. So in this discussion, they will primarily focus on how women farmers can fix the broken food system. Of course, they will explain what does it mean, with an emphasis on gender implications of climate change and overcoming gender discriminatory barriers through setting up of alternative systems. So basically, their discussion will be built on primary and secondary findings from rural agrarian communities in Sri Lanka through their field work and research. So before I move to the discussion, let me briefly introduce Rashmini and Chatu. So Rashmini Silva is a research consultant working on socio-economic intersections of gender, climate change and agriculture. She holds a master's in development studies from the University of Colombo and is currently reading for her master's in environmental management. And Chathurika Sewwandi is an attorney at law, and she is reading for her master's in gender and women's studies at the University of Colombo, and she works at the Law and Society Trust as a researcher and also at the Kalpani National Women's Federation as an advisor. So again, thank you so much for joining today. Just to start the discussion, so basically we will have this discussion in like a Q&A format, and we thought like you have it in both English and Sinhala because we realized that we need to like mainly we had our previous discussions in English, but sometimes it our local audience, local participants, we thought like they might discourage from this language barrier, so we thought to have this discussion in both Sinhala and English. So bear with us for those who cannot understand Sinhala. So apologies in advance. So to start, yeah, I think few seats here. Okay, to start the discussion, I would like to know, as I mentioned before, like what is meant by the broken food system in Sri Lanka. Again,
බිඳවැටුණු ආහාර පද්ධතිය.
බිඳවැටුණු ආහාර පද්ධතිය කියන එකේ මොකක්ද ඔයාලා මූලිකව අදහස් කරන්නේ? ඒ කියන්නේ පැහැදිලි කිරීමක් කරන්න පුළුවන් නම්
Thank you very much for coming. I can see our friends and people here. So it's really good to talk with you, discuss with you about like our experiences, like what we realize about women farmers' role in particularly ensuring the food security and food sovereignty in this country, and what kind of barriers that they are going on. And thank you very much for putting that question at first. Actually, so we don't need to explain academic aluten කියන්න දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. We all are experiencing for last 2 and 3 years how we cope with asserting our food. It means like කොහොමද අම්මලා තාත්තලා ගෙදර මේ සෙට්ටිං කියන්නේ මේ සෙට බත්තික දරුවන්ට දෙන කැම වේල හරියට කැම වේලේ තුන් වේලම කන්න දෙන්න පුළුවන්ද ඒ කියන දේ තහවුරු කරගන්න ඒගොල්ලෝ මේ පහුගිය අවුරුදු දෙක තුන ඇතුළත මුණ දුන්න දුෂ්කරතාවයන් ඒක ආය අමුතුවෙන් අපිට කතා කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. විශේෂයෙන්ම ඒකෙදි කතා කළ යුතු දේ තමයි කවුද මේ ආහාර සුරක්ෂිතභාවය කියන්නේ ආහාර සුරක්ෂිතභාවයේ බිඳවැටීමෙන් වැඩිපුරම පීඩාවට පත් වෙලා ඉන්නේ. So who are the most vulnerable people from this food insecurity? So that is the question that we need to talk because we all are going through this food insecurity issue. So ekath ekka let's get a start. Is it okay if the way I speak like in Sinhala and yeah, okay. So that's one thing that I want to bring in the beginning. So අපි පොඩක් data බැලුවොත් එහෙම දැන් ලංකාවේ ආහාර සුරක්ෂිතභාවයේ බිඳවැටීම කියන එකේදී ලෝක ආහාර සංවිධාන ශිෂ්‍යම පෙන්ලා දීලා තියෙනවා යාළගේ මෑතකදී කරපු reports වලින් like 6.2 million people are facing food insecurity in 2022 and also our inflation rate went so high. It was like more than 60% in last year and the inflation rate of the food is more than 95%, so 90%. So see how it happened for the last year, it means like 2022, right? So make වැඩිපුරම මේක දැන් ඉහළ මධ්‍යම පාන්තික සහ මධ්‍යම පාන්තික ප්‍රජාව මේක ඒගොල්ලෝ යම් තාක් දුරකට යාළගේ ඉතුරුම් පාවිච්චි කරලා එතකොට යාළගේ ඒ තියෙන සම්පත් පාවිච්චි කරලා මේක යම් තාක් දුරකට මැනේජ් කරගත්තා. But think about the people who are living in the plantation sector and urban poor and also people who are in the rural areas. So මේ 6.2 million කියන එකෙන් බලපුවාම මේකේ තියෙන වැදගත්ම දේ තමයි the most hungry people are the food producers. So then there's a question that we need to answer why the food producers are become more vulnerable in a situation like this. So then there's a issue with the system that it means like whole food supply chain and consumer chain. So there is an inequality. So that is the question that we need to find solution. So why if the food producers, particularly small scale food producers, are contributing to the food security in this country and if they become more hungers in this situation, then there is issues with resource allocations and there is issues with these government structures like the acts and also other legislation and there's issues with how they reach to other social security or whatever so-called systems that are established in this country. So that is one thing I want to bring in the beginning and also about like once we focus on the data about the child malnutrition for the last 2 years, like 16% of children between 6 to 59 months, it means like 1 to 5 age, like there are around 16% of children are malnutrition. And also I collected some data about like the UNICEF says in 2022 there are more children under age 5 are going underweight. So once we go to the plantation sector, particularly in the Bogwantalawa in last before 2 months, they shared with us what is their experience. Like they were unable to give 3 meals per child and also they have this Montessori. Then medosala yalata denne kolakanda. Like they were used to give some the meal in the morning, but because of this food insecurity, they don't have enough money to buy rice and they are giving this kolakanda. So you see like then yala කියනවා අපිට kolakanda ටිකවත් දෙන්න අවශ්‍ය හාල් ටික ගන්න විදිහක් නැහැ. So then you see like even though this in particularly in plantation sector they have small collectives which they develop for address the issues like this, but those are also impacted from this food from this issue. So that is one thing I wanted to say. And about like once we go a little bit more about in 2020 there are 2.4 million of particularly people in this country who took microfinance loans. So in the last year it increased, and most of them are women. So see, like because of this economic issue, they don't have enough money to bring the food to home. So therefore they have to go for the microfinance companies. It means they give microfinance loans for higher interest without any regulated mechanism, right? So then there is no option other than going to that. And also I wanted to say, like, so food security concept has more main, like 4 main concepts, like food availability, food accessibility, and food stability, and also food utilization. So let's talk more about that, but all of these concepts have been broken. We can't actually talk about the food sovereignty. So we are unable to assure the food security. Yeah, that is how I wanted to start this conversation, but we can go deeper later.
Thank you, Anna. If I were to add something, where does the provenance of the food system being broken come from? Where does it all start? I think in our line of research, I think we look at the Green Revolution, and we look at it as like the ecological costs and natural resource conflicts associated with the Green Revolution were deeply rooted with farming system that was initially based in crop diversity and internal inputs, and which shifted to external inputs and uniformity. And this shift from internal to external did not only change ecological processes in agriculture and food production. The socio-economic ramifications of this transition was immense, still is. It changed relationships among farming communities, among agrarian communities, where it changed relationships between farmers, government authorities. It created inequalities. It created a whole layer of dependency on chemical inputs, on pesticides and fertilizer. And we need to remind ourselves that according to research done globally, with the introduction of GMO seeds and hybrid seeds, there has been a staggering 75% loss of crop diversity over the past century. 75% of our crop diversity has been lost. And these new miracle seeds that were introduced to our farming communities, they came with glorious, very amazing promises, but with a catch. You know, they came with a huge promise of giving you high yield, but it came with a catch. One, it uses enormous amounts of groundwater. The prices of fertilizer and chemical pesticides and fertilizer kept increasing. And the farmers who previously had a structure of seed conservation where they exchanged seeds, now had to purchase their own seeds, hybrid seeds, GMO seeds, which were designed to be dependent on these chemical inputs. What did this do? This pushed our farming communities into debt traps. Their cost of production was way higher than the actual earnings that they would get from their produce. So this we would say is the provenance of where the food system started to break. I know the Green Revolution, it's seen as this amazing thing that happened to mankind, but we need to look at it from a point where it completely overlooked nutrition per acre. It's not about yield per acre. We've forgotten that in actual sense it needs to be about nutrition per acre, which has completely withdrawn from the mainstream discourses of food production and food systems. Now I shared all this with you. Why is this important to us? Why do we, seated in Colombo here, need to build a discourse on farmers being entangled in debt traps, farmers going to sleep hungry, farmers unable to, farmers moving away from agriculture? That's because 70% of the world's food is produced by small-scale farmers, not large-scale, not big ag, not industrial agriculture. And also, women in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa are responsible for producing more than 50% of food grown in the world. This is why we keep emphasizing that we need to bring women farmers to the forefront of our discussions on fixing the broken food system. And this is why we need to acknowledge their contribution to our food production systems.
Okay, thank you for Chathurika and Rashmini. And I think, so as both of you highlighted, of course, we all know that with this recent ongoing economic crisis, the Sri Lankan food security in the country has been significantly increased with the vulnerability and so on. But also, in that context, the women are more affected by the crisis and in terms of food security. So if you could please explain a bit more about what is the significance of focusing on women farmers in this case, and when we all are affected, including men and women, but why we especially need to focus on women farmers.
So that is the questions that actually we should ask by ourselves. So අපි ගොවීන් කිව්වහම අපිට ගොඩක් වෙලාවට මැවෙන්නේ even දරුවෙක්ගෙන් උනත් අහපුවාම so he is farmer, so if we ask him to draw a farmer, who he draw like a man, right, a father, okay, with the udallat ekka yanawa, so that's how he draw. But why do we want to emphasize women farmers? So that is one thing that we need to focus. Then there is an issue because farmers like you. What if you say like we are farmers? Like it should equally we should remind okay, it's both men and women. But because of the structural and also because of the practical practices that were going through for the past few years in this country, the women farmers, this whole discourse has been hidden or කවුරු හරි ඒක යටපත් කරලා තියෙනවා. මේ වගේ කාරණාවක් නිසා අපිට women farmers ලා කියන කාරණාව ගැන විශේෂයෙන් කතා කරන්න සිද්ධ වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒක අපි එකින් එක ලියලා බැලුවොත් කොහොමද ඒක වෙලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා විශේෂයෙන්ම කාන්තාවගේ මේ ආර්ථික සක්‍රීය ආර්ථික දායකත්වයේ ගත්තොත් the women's contribution for this economy in 2022 it was like 35.4, right? So even though the so-called economic activated women, they have excluded the women who are doing home gardens, right? And also women who are doing whole household things. It means like taking care of their children. So we haven't evaluated and we haven't validated it with economical value. So except all those things, so they call women are contributed to this economy 35% for. And in agriculture sector, if we see the data of their labor contribution for the agriculture, it's 26.5. So men's are also 26 point little less than that. So it means women's contribution of their involvement in agriculture is high, but it is hidden, right? So මේක hidden වෙලා තියෙන අනිත් කාරණාව තමයි විශේෂයෙන්ම අපේ රජයේ තියෙන සහ මේ ගම්වල තියෙන ස්ට්‍රක්චර්ස් ඇතුලේ මේ කාන්තාවගේ භූමිකාව එයා ගොවියෙක් විදිහට කරන කාර්ය එයාට ස්වභාවයෙන්ම ආපු දෙයක්. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒක ඒ ක්‍රමවේදයන් ඇතුලේ යටපත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. I will tell you the example. So in Anuradhapura and that agrarian and also irrigation communities, so they have these societies to take decision like irrigation society and farmer societies. So irrigation societies when they have lack of rain, what they do is they have this tank and they should divide. So they have in the down they have this farmland, the field. So due to the lack of rain, they can't provide water into the field which are quite below, right? Which are quite far from the tank. So what they do is they come to the closer of the field and they divided those field among them, right? So these kind of things, most important things, decisions are taken in that society called irrigation society. But in the irrigation societies, women are not there. Women's participation is really less. And the farmer societies, right? So in the farmer societies, particularly in the fertilizer decision, distributions and this kind of decision where this government agriculture officer also involved are taken in the farmer societies. But farmer societies, if you go and see, the most of the men are there, in this මේ වැදගත් තීන්දුව తీරන ගන්න ගොවි සමිතිවල පිරිමි අය තමයි ඉන්නේ. ඒකට හේතුව මොකක්ද? So ඒකට එයාලගේ ඉඩම්, ඒ කියන්නේ ඉඩම් අයිති තියෙන්නේ අපිට තියෙන, ඒ කියන්නේ we had this land development ordinance and we have this customary laws and other laws which assert the men's access to land and men's land rights but exclude the women to asserting their land rights. So if they want to become a member of the agrarian society or this society, they should have land rights. So who belong the land? Men. So it means like women are naturally excluded in this decision making process. So what is the question is, මේ වගේ food insecurity එකක්, කියන්නේ ආහාර සම්බන්ධ ප්‍රශ්නයක් ආපු වෙලාවක ගමක විශේෂයෙන් කුඩාම ඒකකේ ඒ තීන්දුව తీරන ගන්න ව්‍යුහයන් ඇතුලේ හැමෝම ඉන්න ඕනේ. වතුර ටික යන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා තීරණය කරන්න ඒ ගමට කාන්තාවත් එතන සහභාගී වෙන්න ඕනේ. right? So ඒක practically වෙන්නේ නැත්නම්, එයාලත් දන්නේ නැත්නම් එයාලගේ ඉඩම් වල විශේෂම අනිත් දේ තමයි දැන් ඊළඟ කන්නේ මොනවද වගා කරන්න කියලා ගමේ අය සාමූහිකව තමයි තීන්දුව తీරන ගන්නෙ. ඒ තීන්දුව తీරණය ගන්න ගොවි සමිතිය ඇතුලේ. So that decision is taken within the farmer society. හැබැයි ඒ ඊළඟ කන්නේ වගා කරන්නේ මොකක්ද? ඒ කන්නට මාරු කරන්නේ මොකක්ද? ඒ කියන්නේ ඒක කරන්නේ කාන්තාව නැතුව. හැබැයි අපි කාන්තාව ගෙවිලියෝ කියලා හඳුන්වනවා. හැබැයි ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ මේ ක්‍රමවේදයන් ඇතුලේ එළියට යනවා. ඒ වගේම තමයි විශේෂයෙන්ම කොවිඩ් කාලේ, පහුගිය කාලේ ආහාර සුරක්ෂිතභාවය ගැන තහවුරු කරද්දී ගොඩාක් අය කියන්නේ විශේෂයෙන්ම දැන් මේ ප්‍රශ්නෙත් එක්ක පිරිමි අය, ගෙදර ගෘහමූලිකය කියලා සැලකෙන පිරිමි අය නගරවලට යනවා රස්සාවන් හොයාගන්න. එතකොට පවුලේ වැඩිහිටියොත් බලාගෙන දරුවන්ට ආහාර ටිකක් දීගෙන කොහොම හරි මේ ක්‍රමවේදය ඇතුලේ පවුලේ ආහාර සුරක්ෂිතභාවය තහවුරු කරන්න ඒගොල්ලෝ සෑහෙන මාසයක් ගන්නවා. හැබැයි ඒක කරන්නේ ගොවිතැන් කරලා තියෙන ඉඩේ වගා කරගෙන එහෙම කරලා. හැබැයි ඒගොල්ලන්ව මේ කාන්තා ගොවීන් කියන එකට ඇතුළත් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඉතින් ඒ කාරණාවත් එක්ක මෙතනදී තියෙන දේ තමයි අපි කතා කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒ කියන්නේ කාන්තා ගොවීන් කියන අය ලංකාවේ ආහාර සුරක්ෂිතභාවය, ආහාර ප්‍රවර්ධනය වෙනුවෙන් ඉතා විශාල භූමිකාවක් කරනවා. හැබැයි එයාලට මේ තියෙන ක්‍රමවේදයන් ඇතුලේ එයාලව exclude වෙනවා. They are excluded within this system. So that's why we need to emphasize this. And also if you see the food supply chain, right? So they are contributing all of the stages of the food supply chain. So if we get rice, ඒ කියන්නේ බීජ ටික සංරක්ෂණය කරන තැන පටන්ම, බීජ ටික හොයාගන්න තැන පටන්ම, like the way in the stage that they are seeking the seeds for their field, right? And they are processing those seeds, right? And they are transplanting their seeds and they look after their field, right? And afterward they contribute to the harvesting, right? And they have their knowledge about how to control the pest, the knowledge that they have with the, how to take care about their the farmland, right? And also how to process this food. And once the food the rice is bring to the home, ඊට පස්සේ ඒ ටික කොටලා වේලලා තම්බලා ඒක කොහේ හරි තැනක ගබඩා කරලා ඊළඟ කන්නටත් ඕන කරන වී ටික වෙන් කරගෙන නේ ඉතුරු ටික තියෙනවා නම් විකුණගෙන අන්න ඒ මේ සමස්ත ක්‍රියාවලිය ඇතුළෙම කාන්තාව සක්‍රියව සහභාගී වෙනවා. හැබැයි එයාව තවමත් අපි මේ රාජ්‍ය යාන්ත්‍රණයන් තුළ පොහොර ටික බෙදන්න ගියත් පිරිමි අය තමයි ඇවිල්ලා ඒ තීන්දුව తీරණය ගන්න. ඉතින් ඒක ඇතුලේ කාන්තා ගොවීන් කියන කෙනාව මේකෙන් exclude වෙනවා. Yeah. You want to add something?
Yeah. චතු කියන දේ අපි කරලා තියෙන රිසර්ච් වලින් අපි ප්‍රධාන කාන්තා ගොවීන් මුහුණ දෙන ප්‍රධාන බාධක පහක් අපි හොයාගෙන තියෙනවා, like 5 key deterrents which prevent women farmers or which hinder women farmers from continuing to engage in activity. And I think sorry one thing that we need to thank you I think one thing we need to acknowledge is that women play a pivotal role in Sri Lanka's agriculture sector, although their contribution is neither recognized nor reflected in national policy frameworks, and that's something that we have been we've been advocating with state and non-state actors to try to recognize this contribution that they make. And The intersectionality of inequalities faced by women farmers outline multiple overlapping identities and barriers which vastly are left unaddressed. And at a macro level, women farmers are excluded at two levels. Firstly, as women, and secondly, as small-scale farmers. So in this discussion, we want to bring about 5 key barriers. One is lack of access and control over land. I think Chatu එක ගැන හොඳට විස්තර කරා. මොකද ලංකාවේ ගොවියෙක් කියලා තමන්ට අනන්‍යතාවයක් වෙන නම් තමන්ව හඳුන්වා දෙන්න නම් ඉඩම් land title එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. ඇයි? Agrarian services වලට register වෙන්න you have to be a landowner. Irrigation society එක membership ගන්න. ඊට අමතරව agriculture extension services ලබා ගන්න. හැම දෙයකම ඉඩම් අයිතිය තියෙන්න ඕනේ. ඊට අමතරව තමන්ට බැංකුවෙන් ණයක් අවශ්‍ය නම් if you want to access credit services like then also you need to produce land as collateral. Now in Sri Lanka, in the precarious situation that we are in, the lack of land ownership for women or access and control over land, bank working loan එකක් ගන්න බැරි වුණාම they resort to microfinance services, and that has created a whole layer of issues from women. We'll be discussing that in detail later on in the discussion. 400% වෙනකන් පොලි අනුපාතයක් එක්ක ණය අරන් තියෙන ගෑනුවා ඇයි මේ ඉඩමට නැතිද? And also this lack of land ownership and which hinders their ability to access credit has also resulted women farmers in being stagnant as primary producers in most cases, where it's difficult for them to move up the value chain. A second barrier that we've identified is lack of access to market. From social mobility to physically accessing markets, the presence of middlemen. අතරමැදියෝ ඉන්න එක සෑහෙන ගොඩක් අවස්ථා ක්‍රියා කරන දෙනවා බොහොම අඩුවට ගොවි කාන්තාවන්ගෙන් අරගෙන ඊට පස්සේ අතරමැදිය අපි හැමෝම දන්නවා මේක ගැන ලොකු ලාභයක් තියාගෙන ඊට පස්සේ ගොවි කාන්තාවට අවශ්‍ය මිල ලැබෙන්නේ නැහැ. මේකට එකක් තියෙනවා access to information. The socio-economic barriers that hinder them to actively negotiate, the bargaining power and physical access to markets. So this has also been identified as a key deterrent for women farmers. Mainly because decision making, bargaining and negotiating overall in the market economy is considered as a man's role. So this does act as a huge deterrent. And moving on, access to financial services in continuation to what I spoke of earlier in relation to access to land. Most of these microfinance companies, they get women to sign all these documents in English. Almost all of them can't read. They have no idea what's in the contract. And often when they can't repay the loan, they come and coerce them to take another loan to repay that same loan. And this gets them trapped in like a debilitating debt trap. And often women move away from agriculture. They start engaging in other forms of livelihood and other forms of livelihood as into work as daily paid workers, as housemaids, in order to pay these loans. And it's very interesting that it's always the woman in the family who is pushed to the forefront to sign up for these loans. That's when the men decide to back away. And there are so many cases of, I'm sure you've heard, suicides, sexual harassment, sexual abuse by debt collectors. So access to financial services, especially linking to having land as collateral, is a huge deterrent faced by women farmers. And next we move on to access to technology. Again, all this access to agriculture extension services are reliant on who's identified as a women farmer. I keep repeating it because it's so persistent in every layer of this conversation. And also, one thing we've come to realize is that when we look at certain agricultural extension services which are catered for women, they are very gender biased. They're very limited to household nutrition. Not that I'm undermining the importance of it, but where there's actual technological tools, climate mitigation, climate adaptation tools are concerned, women are seldom factored into these knowledge transferring programs or trainings. And I think the fifth key deterrent, we've identified care responsibilities, because women have to work in the field and also come home, do all the household work. And there is a notable increase in this alongside with rural-urban migration. We also attribute this to climate. We call this climate-induced rural-urban migration as well, because the more families tend to feel the pressure of agriculture not being a feasible livelihood income generation activity. මිනිස්සු එන්න කෘෂිකර්මයෙන් ඈත් වෙනවා, කෘෂිකර්මයෙන් ඉවත් වෙලා ඊට පස්සේ ගෙදර ඉන්න පිරිමියා යනවා නගරයට මොකක් හරි රැකියාවක් හොයාගන්න. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපේ පරිශ්‍රණ වලින් අපි හොයාගෙන තියෙන්නේ ඒ රැකියාවල් to work in construction sites, to work in small restaurants. So this, on the flip side of the coin, is this increases the care burden of the woman even more. And what we realize is, it's very easy for us to assume hari දැන් ගෙදර ඉන්න එක්කෙනා hari රස්සාවක් හොයාගෙන කොළඹට hari නගරයට ගිහිල්ලා. එතකොට නෑ. එතකොට ගෙදර කාන්තාවට තව support එකක් හම්බෙයි. Economically they will have more support, but no, in most cases women have had to start engaging in an additional line of work. Like for example, she has to work in the field, attend to work at home, and also work in a shop, work in a house as a maid. So the ramifications of this this urban-rural migration has had a significant impact on women farmers, women in agrarian communities. And then to move on to gendered implications of climate change, I think in this whole discourse of women farmers and agrarian communities, we can't leave out the overarching issues such as climate change, because we need to remind ourselves climate change exacerbates existing inequalities. We can't treat it as a different issue, as an individual pillar. No, it exacerbates existing inequalities. Whatever there is now, it makes it worse, right? And women are disproportionately at the risk of effects of climate change, and rural women living in agrarian communities face this more, because when we look at the dry zone where they only get rain for 5 months a year, just imagine a woman traditionally in a rural agrarian household is responsible වතුර ගේන්නයා, with water management, ඊට පස්සේ crops වලට වතුර දාන්නේ, ඔක්කොම වගකීම ගන්නයා. Water sources හිඳෙන්න තමන් වතුර ගන්න වැවට හෝ ඇලට තියෙන මාර්ගය අවහිර වෙන්න නැත්නම් වතුර ප්‍රභව හිඳෙන්න she has to spend more time fetching water. And there's an element of gender-based violence, climate, intersections of GBV and climate change. මේ වතුර ගේන්න යන මාර්ගය වැඩි වෙන්න, there are so many recorded incidents of sexual harassment where it's so common that it's normalized. Also, when we look at a time use study, especially in the estate sector, something that came up was maybe 5 years ago, if it took 5 hours for a tea plucker to collect the targeted amount of tea, now it takes more than double, because reduction in soil quality, changes in rainfall patterns, which has all led to changes in yield. So these are very specific gendered implications of climate change, which we cannot avoid in this whole discourse of women farmers and how it impacts agriculture. And again, I think I spoke about climate-induced migration. And another thing, I keep saying this, but the intersections of gender inequality and climate change in the agriculture sector in Sri Lanka it primarily falls between who is considered a farmer. Why do I say this again? When we look at certain, for example, non-state development interventions introduced by the non-governmental sector, etc. Again, when you look at climate adaptation and climate mitigation technologies introduced to farming communities, who has access to them? It's always the men, it's always those who are registered as farmers, which again excludes them. But when we look at the stages in which women engage in food production systems, අපි ආහාර නිෂ්පාදන ක්‍රියාවලියේ වැඩිපුරම දේශගුණික විපර්යාස වලින් බලපාන්නේ කාන්තාවෝ නියැලෙන කොටස්. ඉතින් ඒගොල්ලෝ තමයි ඒකට වැඩියෙන්ම ඒකේ තියෙන අවදානම් තත්ත්ව වලට මුහුණ දෙන්නේ. Because we like Chathu said, they engage in almost every sector in the food production field, but so because of that, it makes them even more vulnerable. And I think, just to reiterate, I think the conversations of women farmers and the gender inequality that they are faced with, we can't leave climate implications out of it and consider it as a separate discourse. I think it's something that is very relevant, and it's not it's inseparable in other ways. Yeah.
වැදගත් කාරණා දෙක මතු කරේ දැන් මේ විශේෂයෙන්ම දැන් අපිට දැන් ක්ලයිමේට් චේන්ජ් ගැන හිතනකොට ඇත්තටම මේක ටිකක් අපි වැලිබල් එක හරිම ටෙක්නිකල් සයන්ටිෆික් ඉෂුව එකක් තියෙනවා ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ඒක කතා කරන නිසා ඒ කියන්නේ ඒකට සොලියුෂන්ස් වලදීසා යන්නේ නමුත් ඇත්තටම දැන් අර කියපු සමහර ප්‍රශ්න ඇත්තටම ජෙන්ඩර් බේස් වයලන්ස් මේ වගේ දේවල් ඇත්තටම මේකට රිලේටඩ් විදිහට අපි තේරුම් ගන්න උත්සාහ කරනකොට ඒක ඇත්තටම ඒක it's very scary in a way, no? I mean, but I think, I mean, that is why this is really important to highlight. I mean, looking from that perspective, how can these, the issues like climate change can have an impact on gender-based violence and even within these rural communities, how it is, affect, especially to women.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Thanks. If I were to add something further to what, how Upu kind of concluded some points that we made, there is an artificial dichotomy between natural disasters and slow onset climatic change. That's there in the state sector, that's there in even development interventions where we consider them as two separate scenarios, like a natural disaster versus drought, changes in rainfall patterns, increasing salinity levels. I think this also has kind of contribution to where natural disaster, okay, quick done. But there's seldom effective measures taken to tackle issues of slow and onset climatic events. And I think there's a dearth of knowledge and data on how we can kind of bridge these two, and where I think there's an immense need where we don't treat these as two separate scenarios, where we kind of look at it in a collective and holistic way. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even our previous session, our speaker Harry highlighted this point as well, the importance of looking through this political, ecological angle rather than ecological issues taken as a separate, isolated thing. I hope we can release the video soon through our YouTube channel. Anyhow, so I think now more or less it's clear what is the issue, what are the issues in terms of this food security and how it can affect especially the women farmers and so on. But I think the important aspect is, or the most contested topic is what are the solutions, or what could be the solution, because people may have come up with different solutions based on maybe their backgrounds, institutional backing and so on. So if we can talk a little bit more about what alternative systems that women farmers have set up in overcoming these same issues or challenges, especially in rural context. අපිට ටිකක් කතා කරන්න පුළුවන් නම් දැන් මේ අපි ප්‍රශ්න කතා කරන එක වැදගත් මේ ප්‍රශ්න හරියටම අල්ලගන්න එක. නමුත් ඒ වගේම වැදගත් මොකක්ද මොනවද මේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට අපිට විසඳුම් මොනවද? සස්ටේනබල් ඉන්ෆ්‍රස්ට්‍රක්චර් විසඳුම් මොනවද කියන එකත් මම හිතන්නේ එහා සමාන වැදගත්කමක් තියෙනවා. otherwise අර මේක අපි විවේචනයේ වැදගත් but ඔතනින් දෙක අපි ප්‍රායෝගික විසඳුම් විශේෂයෙන්ම මේ කාන්තා සාමූහික සහයෝගය පදනම් කරගත්ත විසඳුම් තියනවාද? එහෙම තියනවා නම් ඔයාලගේ පරිශ්‍රණවලදී එහෙම මතුවෙච්ච කරුණු සම්බන්ධව පොඩ්ඩක් කතා කරන්න පුළුවන් නම්.
Yeah, thank you, Pul. Before I go to the alternatives part, let me a bit explain about what Rashmini said. So this whole climate change issue and its impact and what government propose, right? And where is the women on that? So this is something that we need to understand quite in a coming up. So ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් මේ ඊයේ පෙරේදා ඔයාලා දන්නවද දන්නේ නැහැ food security ගැන food security කියලා යෝජිත 50 කෙටුම්පතක් එන්න හදනවා. So there's a bill called food security and I went from one to like from the last page and it's not about food security, something else, right? So food security වල concept එකවත් අඩුම ගානේ 50 ඇතුලේ 50 කෙටුම්පත ඇතුලේ touch කරලා නැහැ. and ඒක වී සහ බඩිරුඟ වගාව ලංකාවේ ප්‍රචලිත කරන්න සහ ඒක තමයි ප්‍රධාන භෝගයන් කියලා යාලා කියලා තියෙනවා. ඒ දෙකට තමයි ගොවියෝ අවධානය යොමු කරන්න ඕනේ, ඉඩම් දෙන්න ඕනේ කියලා. මේක වෙනම මොකක් හරි අරමුණක් වෙනුවෙන්, ඒ කියන්නේ ගොවිගේ ඉඩම්, වගා නොකරන ඉඩම්, යම් කිසි කාල සීමාවක් වල වගා කරන්නේ නැත්නම් ඒ ඉඩම් රජයට පවරගෙන කැමැති භෝගයක් වගා කරන්න රජයට පුළුවන් decision එකක් දෙන්න. The government can give a decision, okay, we can get your lands from you because you don't use this land for a particular period, then we have the power and we can decide to whom that it should be given and what should be cultivated in. So කාටද මේ ඉඩම් දෙන්නේ? IMF එක එනවා, ඒගොල්ලෝ අපිට කියනවා foreign investment වලට යන්න කියලානේ. මෙන්න සයිකල් එකක් යනවා පිටිපස්සෙන්. ඒ අතරේ there is a legislation change as well. So they can give this land for the investors to do the monocropping like Komarika in like who are doing this cow the Tambugal is doing, right, and promoting. So and also the sugarcane like Dimali at in that area like 65 acres of lands are the people's land, right? So they are cultivating a lot of foods there, but government, the Mahavali authority need to give this land to the sugarcane company called Castle Ventures in Singapore. So these people are continuously struggling, right, during the impact and all these things from the climate change, impact from with the climate change. So අපි තේරුම් ගන්න ඕනේ අර දැන් climate change තියෙනවා, ඒකේ බලපෑම තියෙනවා. හැබැයි රජය දැන් ඒ රජය how government understand the impact of climate change and what should be given to the farmers. So they focus this in only to the compensations, right? In that Food Security Act also, bill also, if you go through, they emphasize, okay, there's a process to compensate, but not to mitigate. And women, they are totally neglected, and there's no anything about women if you go through that food security bill. So yeah, that's why we need this kind of discourse and discussions to empower. And you can also send your suggestions to the bill because they are in the process of considering people's, perceptions. So you can send your proposals to that bill. So that is what I wanted to emphasize, like how government is here and how do they intentionally exclude women from the whole discourse of the climate change. Yeah, that is one thing I want to know. So about the alternatives, so that is also the most important thing. Okay, we have this issue and there are some structural issues behind them, but still we are fighting and we are saying like women farmers should be recognized. So what I'm presenting from here is present through my experiences. So if I tell you a bit about why I am interested into this field, I came from a farming family. My father, from his young age, is someone who seeks alternative agriculture methods to practice and also they promote it in Sri Lanka. So from my childhood, we had this farmland where my father did agroecology and he gave this knowledge which he earned by himself to a lot of people in this country, north and other areas as well. So from my childhood, I was there with the people and I saw what my father is trying to do, and he introduces another system called system of rice intensification in Sri Lanka. Particularly, he gave some evidences where you can cultivate rice without using any pesticide or fertilizer. So we got best harvest, and we are still promoting this system within ourselves, in our garden. So we have a home garden and also training center where people can come and learn. So that is my background, that why I believe this, once we called alternatives, I believe agroecology should be there, because it's not only about farming method, but it's a concept which says the farmer's right. Like in the concept of agroecology, we talk about the seed rights and land rights, and also all this system which give farmers access to the market, and they can produce whatever they want, and they can sell in whatever the places that is possible. So then also, apart from that, in 2014 I got opportunity to volunteer support for this organization called Vikalpan National Women's Federation. It's a women's organization who do farming and agroecology, and they are working with the women in Monaragala district, and they are developing this alternative system. So I was there and I could get some exposure working with them. So then I could work with some other regional and international level networks who do the same things, and who do the practice alternative systems like that. So and also in the LST, so we are working with a lot of women in a lot of districts in the country, and we encourage them to practice alternative food system, because we believe women's contribution for this food security is it's remarkable, and they should be recognized. So අපි දැන් පටන් ගත්ත එක දෙයක් තමයි විශේෂම මොනරාගල සහ අනිකුත් දිස්ත්‍රික්ක වල මේ විශේෂම එයාලගේ තියෙනවා එයාලා වගා කරනවා ඒක එයාලා කරන්නේ පාරිසරික විදිහට පාරිසරික කෘෂිකාර්මික විදිහට, and they have their knowledge, right, how to make their own seeds and how not to buy the hybrid seeds, right. එහි සමිතිවල ගොවි සමිතිවල CIC එකේ මහත්ලා එනවා. දැන් මේ දවස්වල මොනරාගල එක වෙනවා. ඇවිල්ලා කියනවා හරි දැන් ෆර්ටිලයිසර් බෑන් එක අයින් කරා. අපිට ඕන දෙයක් ගෙන්නන්න පුළුවන්. ඔයාලට දැනුම දෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ පැකේජ් එකම දෙන්න පුළුවන් කියලා CIC එකේ මහත්තුරු මොනරාගල ඇවිල්ලා මේක කරනවා. and government officers ලා තමයි එයාලට support කරන්නේ, and එයාලා තමයි invite කරන්නේ. so ඒකට against අපේ කාන්තාවෝ අලුත් සමිති හදාගෙන යනවා. හදාගෙන ගන්න ගමන් ඒ කාන්තාවන්ගේ trainers ලා ඉන්නවා. එයාලා agroecology කොහොමද ඔයාගේ කාබනික පෝර ටික හදාගන්නේ, කොහොමද ඔයා fish tonic එකක් fruit tonic එකක් මෙන්න මේ වගේ alternatives pest repellent methods මොනවද ඒව කොහොමද හදාගන්නේ කියලා එයාලා team එකක් හදාගෙන ඉන්නවා. එතකොට මේ අලුත් group වලට එයාලා තමයි ගිහිල්ලා training එක දෙන්නේ. group එක establish කරද්දිම කියනවා අපේ මෙහෙම concept එකක් තියෙනවා. ඔයාලා අපේ කණ්ඩායමට එකතු වෙන්න කැමති නම් මෙන්න මේ benefits ලැබෙනවා. හැබැයි ඔයාලා පරිසර කෘෂිකර්මය තමයි කරන්න ඕනේ. ඔයාලට ඒක convert වෙන්න කාලයක් යනවා. මොකද මේ not like goat deep, like you can't do it within one night, right? So it's a process, and you need knowledge, and your soil need to convert into that, and it takes time. Like මේ අක්කරේට රසායනික පොර දාන්න නම් ඔයාලට ගැඩවිලක් හොයාගන්න බෑනේ. so ගැඩවිලාව හැදෙන්න කාලයක් යනවා. ඒකට අවශ්‍ය පස සරු කරන්න, වැටහිරිය ටික දාන්න හැටි, කොම්පෝස්ට් එක ටික හදාගන්න හැටි. It's a process. It takes time. So these women gradually support these new groups to make their own farmland. So that's the one thing that they do. And once they start this society, so the saving is compulsory. So they do their own savings within this society. So ඒක ඒගොල්ලන්ව prevent කරනවා to go to the microfinance, debt company, and they give loans for around 1% or 2% interest. Right, and also the harvest, they have farmers market, right? They have built their own village level farmers market, and they have very good collection system. So other mama යනවා farm එකට මම ගිහිල්ලා ඔයාලගේ group මේ harvest එක එකතු කරන්න ඇවිල්ලා මේ සතියේ මම තමයි පොලේ ඒ කියන්නේ farmers market එකේ ගිහිල්ලා ටික විකුණන්නේ. Then I allocate the profit to and income to the those who gave the harvest, and next week it rotates. So there is a system. And there's one lady who do this, we call it Jangama, like she has a bike and she go with the selling these things. That's the one thing. And also the seed. So we in Monaragala we have seed bank, and we have some more seed banks. So it means like after the harvesting, like they give some portion to save in their seed bank. This is for like conserve for the next harvest. And also they ensure that these varieties are not in danger. It means like they are not going to destroy. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ varieties අපි පාවිච්චි කරන ඒවා ටික සුරක්ෂිත වෙලා තියෙනවා. And ඒගොල්ලෝ like ඒගොල්ලෝ seed exchange කරනවා ඊළඟට කන්නට ඕනේ ටික තේරෙනවා නම් ඒකට අදාළ දෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ ඔයා මට මේ පාර වගා කරගන්න මට ඕනේ නම් මුංගට වගා කරන්න ඔයා මට ඒ මුංගට කිලෝ එක දෙනවා. මම මේ ලබනාව පාර මුංගට කිලෝ දෙකක් මෙයාට දෙනවා. අන්න ඒ විදිහට. So they have this very good system, right? The thing is like and we asked to like try on this seed certification process as well. And it was quite funny. The funny mean like it is really sad to say about this. Once you go to this certifications, it's a huge process which enacted by the government to prevent farmers' practices like seed exchange and these things. So they wanted to practice this because they are believing seed certification is something that corporates wanted, you know, and not the farmers, because as farmers we were cultivating and we were sharing our seeds and there was no any issue, but these corporates want to grab this seed monopoly and they want to control our seeds, right? So what is the process? If you go to the certification process, ඔයාට අක්කර කාලක් නැත්නම් if you don't have half an acres, you can't go to the certification. It means you are out of certification. That means if you, according to Sri Lankan law, if you want to sell the seeds, you need to have a certification, right? So if you don't have in the beginning, if you don't have a one and a half, like quarter of acre of land, you can't go for the certification. And the second thing, so අපි දැන් මේ විදිහට seeds හදලා ඒ කණ්ඩායම දැන් ගියා මේක විකුණන්නත් එපා. Then they had this bandaka seeds and everything, right? So then they went to the shops in the Monaragala, and in the Monaragala like this retail, they said no, we were asked to buy only from the companies like CIC, not from the farmers like you. This knowledge were given by the government officers. They come to these shops and they ask. It means like they want to ensure this corporate has proper, you know, like the market for them, even at the village level. Then these women are quite difficult to find the markets for their seeds. Some are certified seeds, right? So then how this seeds monopoly is governed by the corporates in country, like one of two things. And however they are still practicing this, and they have their own system to ensure. Like we have our own seeds, and they have very huge knowledge about like what are the seeds that are capable for the rain, and what are like they take this decision within their small societies. Okay, ඊළඟ කන්නට අපි මුංගට මොනවද වගා කරන්නේ? ඒක දේශීය මුංගට ටික මොනවද? අනිත් මුංගට ටික මොනවද? commercial level වලට යනවා නම් ඒක කොහොමද? They take decision by themselves. And also like they are like as an example in Jaffna and also Mulathu, where Vijay is also working. So there they are promoting the cooperatives and system like that. So it means like they can take the decisions with the resources that they have, and also the harvest that they have, and also the money that they have. It means they are more encouraging establishing cooperatives because they believe අපි අපේ සල්ලි ටික ගම ඇතුලේ ඉතුරු කරගත්තොත් then අපි මේ ණය ටික ගමේ අපි අපේ සල්ලි ටික අපේ ගමේ cooperative සමිතිය තමයි අපි save කරන්නේ, and එතකොට ඒ සල්ලි ටික ගම ඇතුලේ තමයි තියෙන්නේ, like not in the like in DBO whatever the banks, right? Because we are not giving our money to out of the village because we need this money in this moment. So again sir, they are more encouraging this cooperatives bank. Like as an example, we went to the Jaffna cooperative, the fishery particularly. So it's so beautiful to see how they are so enriched with the cooperatives. Like යාලගේ මාළු ටික යාලා ගත්තාම ඒ කියන්නේ ඉඳලා දවසට අරගෙන ආවම මාළු ටික මාළු අස්වැන්න cooperative එක තමයි මේ වෙළඳපොළ handle කරන්නේ. right? එයාලා තමයි ඒකට අදාළ මේ මාළු ටික මිලදී අරගෙන එහා පැත්තෙන් වෙළඳුන්ට විකුණන්නේ. ඒතර cooperative එක හැම එයාලගේ ගේන මාළු ඇස්සන්නේ මේ රශ්මිනී මාළු කිලෝ දෙකක් ගෙනනවා එක මාළුවෙක් බාස්කට් එකකට දාගන්නවා. right? පොඩි මාළු නම් ඒකේ මාළු අගුරක් කරන් බාස්කට් එකකට දානවා. ඒක විකුණනවා එදාට. ඒක තමයි cooperative එකේ ආදායම. ඊට පස්සේ එදාම ඔයාට පුළුවන් රශ්මිනීට පුළුවන්
ඒ කෝපරේටිව් එකේ ඉතුරු කරන්න. හරි මගේ ආදායම අද 1250යි මේ 250 ඔයා ඉතුරු කරන්න. මම 1000ක් යන්නම්. ඉතින් එයා නොදැනී ඉන්න එයාට සිස්ටම් එකක් හැදලා එයාගේ සේවිංස් හැදෙනවා. අන්න ඒ වගේ සිස්ටම්ස් තියෙනවා මේ කෝපරේටිව් සොසයිටිස් වල මිනිස්සු විසින් ගොඩනගාගත්තු. මොකද they believe like their rural economy and their contribution for the rural economy is the best thing. And if you want to like ensure if we want to find the solutions for this economic crisis, we need to first ensure that rural economy is strong and our money is there, right? So and also this women's knowledge. So they are gathering and they are sharing experiences and they are sharing their knowledge. So if you see this whole food supply chain, so they have answers and they are already practicing it. And they are saying so we need to well organize and we need to well empower by ourselves and we need to have our own resources for that. So sometimes, and they're thoroughly believing that they need a movement to do kind of like a national level change, and if they need to find solutions for this political oppress and also this the oppress that putting on government and policies and laws like this, they need a movement for that. So because the small activities are good enough for them to survive, but we need to find a solution for this national issue, they need a movement for that. And then they are organizing and they ask our support and advice on that. So that's how those alternatives are going goes on.
You want to add something?
No, I'm good. I think from what Chatu explained, especially it's incredible work then, and it really, I think seeing these systems work is what really motivates us to continue doing the work that we do, because we get that hope. Because sometimes there are times where I'm sure researchers and activists here, we feel really lonely that we're fighting a lonely battle. But when we see these women actively coming to the forefront and making these things work, finding alternatives, navigating through these numerous barriers, I think that's something that really motivates us as researchers and ground level workers. And just to add on something about seed registration and how deep rooted the Green Revolution or what the Green Revolution brought is, the one condition is that අක්කර කාලක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒක අක්කර කාලක you have to cultivate that in an area of quarter acres or 40 perches. The other one is within a radius of 1 kilometer. කිලෝමීටර් එකක වපසරයක වෙන කිසිම භෝගයක් වගා කරන්න බෑ. මිරිස් නම් මිරිස් විතරයි ඒ වර්ගයේ. ඇයි අපි ඇයි ඒක භෝග වගාවට පුළුවන් තරම් හැම විත්ති හැම පුළුවන් හැම තැනින්ම බ්ලොක් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. Like just imagine that you can't cultivate any other crop within a perimeter of 1 kilometer. And then when we challenge authorities, I think we did that like 2-3 weeks ago. Why? Because we're practicing agroecology where we promote biodiversity in our crops, where we promote crop diversity. But they've nothing to say. Because who funds this research? Who makes these decisions? It's time we question who is, who's in the payroll of, who's paying these professors, who's funding this research, who is making these policy decisions, and in whose interest. It's time we really start asking these questions, because I think that answers half of our questions. I think recently I shared this with Chatu. I don't want to call it an opportunity, but made a presentation on seed conservation and the importance of indigenous seed conservation to a panel which was all like on the payroll of CIC and who was promoting climate smart agriculture. And you can imagine, I was like a little guppy in a sea of sharks. Not that guppies and sharks live in the same ecosystem, but sorry. But it distorted me, because all these big figures, all these professors were asking, so if indigenous seeds are so great, why don't you register this? And then how do I keep a calm composure and tell him, because people like you have very tactfully stopped it from being registered, quarter acre land limit. restrictions, have one crop in a perimeter of 1 kilometer. So all of that, I just wanted to add like that experience. But yeah, thank you.
Oh, ඇත්තටම රශ්මිනී කිව්වා ඇත්තටම චතු දෙයාසේ ඇත්තටම මේ පැහැදිලි කරපු කාරණා කියන්නේ ඇත්තටම ග්‍රාස් රූට් ලෙවල් එකේ ග්‍රවුන්ඩ් ලෙවල් එකේ සමාජයට අපිට ටච් වෙන්නේ නැති නමුත් මේ විදිහේ ඉනිෂියේටිව්ස් කොහොමද ඒ කමියුනිටිස් ඇතුලේ ඒකට ඕගනයිස් වෙන විදිය මේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට එහෙම මහන්න ලැබීම එක පැත්තකින් අර බලාපොරොත්තු ගන්නවා. නමුත් ඒකත් එක්ක මට this may be a typical question, but like since you also referred to the problem with the green revolution and so on, I mean this question is again and again coming because like for example like this green revolution or this chemical agriculture, industrial agriculture, it came to the forefront to address the food security. So, but there are criticism, people who are in favor of industrial agriculture, but there are criticism about these sort of alternative systems is that these are not capable of ensuring the food security. So, how can we feed the world whether this amount of harvest yield is enough, there is enough to fulfill the requirements of the population, the ever-growing population. So, what is your response to such criticism? I mean, do you think, it's also connected with this debate of food security versus food sovereignty, right? So, how do you see that? Do you think these sort of alternative systems rooted in these small communities will be able to address this, the larger scale food security issue?
මම හිතන්නේ උපුල් යොමු කරපු ප්‍රශ්නයකට මම අහන්න කැමති දැන් big agriculture, industrial agriculture නෑ කමන්නේ උපුල් වානේ අහුවේ වා තමයි යොමු කරේ I'm kidding. දිනකට ඉතින් එච්චර දැන් අපේ රටේ මට සමාවෙන්න මට එකපාරට මතක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ මේකට සංඛ්‍යා දත්ත ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න. නමුත් අපේ ලෝකේ තියෙන energy consumption වැඩිපුරම තියෙන sector එකක් තමයි industrial agriculture. එච්චර එහෙනම් මේව කළත් ඉතින් ඇයි තාම malnutrition තියෙන්නේ? ඇයි access to food limited? එහෙනම් අපිට ওই ප්‍රශ්න වලට උත්තරයක් ලැබිලා තියෙන්න ඕනේ. I will hand over this to Chathurika because her father has pioneered like techniques like rice system, rice intensification, stuff like that. I'm sure Chatu has more.
So this is a question actually, which was asked from a lot of people, right? Like once you talk about this so-called organic agriculture, what they grow, right? Within one. So, ඒක තමයි දැන් ඒක රශ්මිනී කිව්වා වගේ ඇයි ඒ තරම් chemical fertilizer මත base වෙච්ච එහෙම agriculture system එකකට පුළුවන් නම් ලෝකයේ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ ආහාර සුරක්ෂිතභාවය තහවුරු කරන්න ඒක FAO වගේ ඒ සංවිධාන වලින් පවා ඒක ප්‍රොමෝට් කරනවානේ. ඒතර ඇයි අද තව දුරටත් අපි වගේ තුන්වන ලෝකයේ රටවල් විශේෂයෙන්ම not about the global north but particularly the global south, right? So ඇයි අපි හැබැයි අපි තමයි ආහාර නිෂ්පාදනයේට දායක වෙන්නේ වැඩිපුරම, right? So ඒගොල්ලෝ කියන්නේ හරි ඔයාලා මේ ක්‍රම තවදුරටත් පාවිච්චි කරන්න. මොකද chemical fertilizer based මේ agriculture එක මත තමයි ඔයාලට ගොඩ යන්න පුළුවන් කියලා they insist us. But we know it has failed. So why it has failed? So මගේ පෞද්ගලික අත්දැකීම් වලින් සහ මම මේක දිහා දැකපු විදිහෙන් කියන්නේ මේ පරිසර I'm not talking about the organic agriculture because once it comes to the organic it's all about certificates and exporting and all of these standards. But that's not right as I say about agroecology. පරිසර කුෂිකර්ම. මිනිස්සු විසින් වගා කරනු ලබන කුෂිකර්ම. ඒක වගා ක්‍රමයක් නෙමෙයි. ඒක එතනින් එහාට ගිය ජෛව විවිධත්වය ඔයාට අවශ්‍ය කරන පොහොර ටික ඔයාගේ ඉඩම ඇතුළේම කොහොමද නිෂ්පාදනය කරගන්නේ? ඔයාට ඕන කරන බීජ ටික කොහොමද සේව් කරගන්නේ? ඒක ඔයාම නිෂ්පාදනය කරන්නේ කොහොමද? එතනින් එහාට ගිහිල්ලා මම අර කිව්වා වගේ ඒ ගම ඇතුලේ කොහොමද මේ සම්පත් බෙදා හදාගන්නේ? මෙන්න මේ සමස්ත ක්‍රමවේදය තමයි මේ වගා ක්‍රමයක් කියලා කියන්නේ. නැතුව මේ එක රැයකින් මේ ඔයාගේ පසේ තියෙන NPK වැඩි කරන එක නෙමෙයි. නයිට්‍රජන් ෆොස්ෆරස් සහ ඒ අදාළ දේ වැඩි කරන එක නෙමෙයි. එතන එහාට ගිහිල්ලා අපි මේක දකින්න ඕනේ. සෝ ඒක තමයි. ඒක එක රැයකින් කරන්න බෑ. ඒක ප්‍රොසෙස් එකක්. අර මම කලින් කිව්වා වගේ. ඒක ඇතුලේ ගමේ ආහාර සුරක්ෂිතභාවය ඒ විදිහට වැඩි දියුණු කරගන්න පුළුවන් නම් ඒක ඇතුලේ කාන්තාවත් සමාන විදිහට සහභාගී වෙනවා. ආගේ දේශීය ඥානය පාවිච්චි කරන්න. එතකොට අපිට external input වලට වලින් depend වෙන්න තියෙන අවස්ථා අඩුයි. අපිට ඕනේ නැහැ CIC කම්පැනි ඇවිල්ලා අපිට ඕන කරන බීජ ටික දෙන්න. right? ඔය ඊළඟ කන්නේට වගා කරන්න ඕනේ මේක. අපේ ගමේ තියෙන කඩේ කුෂිකර්ම නිලධාරියාගෙන් අපේ ගොවින්දන් ගිහිල්ලා මහත්තයෝ මොකද්ද ඊළඟට ගන්න මගේ මේ වගාවට මේ කොළ මේ රෝගය ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. කුෂිකර්ම මේ කරන්නේ. ඒ කඩේ මුදලාලි තමයි කියන්නේ හරි මේක තමයි ඔයාලා ගන්න ඕනේ කියලා. right? so එහෙම සිස්ටම් එකක් මත ඩිපෙන්ඩ් වෙන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. එතකොට අපි උත්තර හොයන්න ඕනේ මෙන්න දැන් මේ මොකද උත්තර හොයන්න ඕනේ මේ ඇග්‍රිකල්චර් කියන එක who is defined, right? who make the policies? අපේ රටේ ආහාර සම්බන්ධයෙන් කෘෂිකර්ම සම්බන්ධ policies හදන්නේ කවුද? අධ්‍යාපනයේ අපි ඉගෙන ගන්නවාද අපේ රාජ්‍ය නිලධාරීන් ඉගෙන ගන්නවාද මේ විකල්ප නැත්නම් මේ ඇග්‍රෝ ඉකොලොජි ගැන ඉගෙන ගන්නවාද? නැහැ. right? So එයාලා ඉගෙන ගන්න conventional farming, like they even in the universities, even in the how to increase the NPK in the soil. So you need external input. It means like you need fertilizer, and for this particular pesticide you need to use, right? So අපි දැන් මොනරාගල අපි ගිහිල්ලා කරද්දී දැන් මේ බීජ වගාවෙත් එහෙමයි කිව්වා ඒක අපිට යම් අවස්ථාවක සිද්ධ වුණා රාජ්‍ය නිලධාරීන් සම්බන්ධ කරගන්න. එතකොට එයාලට අපි කිව්වේ අපි මේ අපේ භෝග්‍ය වලට එන කෘමි ටික පාලනය කරගන්න ක්‍රමය අපි දන්නවා. ඒකට අපිට ඔයාලගේ උපදෙස් ඕනේ නැහැ. මේක මේ certified වෙන process එක විතරක් කියන්නේ. Because they don't know. So ඒක ප්‍රධාන හේතුවක්. ඒ කියන්නේ අනිත් හේතුන් අතරේ එක ප්‍රධාන හේතුවක් රාජ්‍ය නිලධාරීන් තමයි වැඩිපුරම මේ පෞද්ගලික කාලේ ගෙනාවු මේ agriculture ban එකට resist උනේ. Because they don't know they don't have alternative knowledge. So ඒක නිසා මේක දැන් මේ හොඳම උදාහරණ මම පොඩක් ඔබ්සර්ව් කරා ඒ ඇග්‍රිකල්චර් බෑන් කියන්නේ ෆර්ටිලයිසර් බෑන් එක ආපු වෙලාවේ අපේ රටේ CIC ඇතුළු අනිකුත් කම්පැනිස් වලින් ෆන්ඩි ගන්න මේ එකට සපෝට් කරන මහාචාර්යවරු කොච්චර Zoom meeting ගානක් තිබ්බද මේක ෆේල් වෙනවා මෙහෙම එකක් කරන්න බෑ කියලා. ඒ වගේම මේ වෙද්දි ජාත්‍යන්තරයේ අනිකුත් රටවල් වල විශේෂයෙන්ම කෝපරේට්ස් මගින් හසිජෙන්ද හයිජෙන් වගේ මේ කෝපරේට්ස් මගින් ලංකාව එක උදාහරණයකට ගන්නවා. බලන්න ලංකාව ගියා ඇග්‍රෝ ඉකොලොජි වලට එහෙම නැත්නම් කාබනික විදියට වගා කරන්න ගියා. හැබැයි නැත්තරම නැති වෙලා ගියා. දැන් ඒක යාර රිලේට් කරන ඉකොනොමික් ක්‍රයිසිස් එකට and food security එකට. So they get this as an example. So අර ඒක තමයි මට දෙන්න තියෙන උත්තරේ. මේක එක රැයකින් කරා මේ අපේ හැම ඔළුගෙඩි වල තියෙන මේ ඇග්‍රිකල්චර් කෘෂිකර්මය කියන්නේ මේ එක්ස්ටර්නල් ඉන්පුට් මත සිද්ධ වෙච්ච දෙයක්. ඒක ඕනේ කියලා මේවා අපේ ඔළුව මත හදලා තියෙන වෙන කවුරුවත්. So ඒක අපිට ගලවන්න පුළුවන් නම් අපිට පුළුවන් නම් පස්සේ කොහොමද බීජයක් වගා මේ දැම්මා මේක කොහොමද වැඩෙන්නේ ඒකට ඕන කරන පොහොර ටික කොහොමද ස්වභාවිකව හදාගන්න කියලා ප්‍රැක්ටිස් කරනවා නම් මේක මහා අරුමයක් නෙමෙයි. හැබැයි ඒක වගා කිරීම විතරක් නෙමෙයි. එතනින් එහාට ගිය සිස්ටම් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඉඩම් ටික රජෙන් දෙන්නේ නැත්නම් මිනිස්සුන්ට වගා කරන්න ඒව ටික අල්ලගෙන ඉන්නවා නම් ඒව හදනවා නම් මොනවාද අනිකුත් මේ සමාගම් වලට දෙන්න එතනදී අර කියලා වැඩක් නැහැ. ඔයාලා ඇග්‍රෝ ඉකොලොජි කරන්න කියලා ෆේල් වුණා කියලා. හරි මිනිස්සුන්ට ඇක්සස් තියෙනවනේ ලෑන්ඩ් වලට, වෝටර් වලට, සීඩ්ස් වලට and ඒවට. right? So this is a concept. So which take time. right? අපිට මේක එකපාරට රිවර්ස් කරන්න බෑ. ඒ වගේ miracles කරන්න බෑ. It takes time and it can be developed through these small examples. But the government role is significant there. So they, in terms of access, giving them access to the resource and other things.
Yeah.
Like you can answer.
Yeah. I think, to add something, I think government and also role of civil society and also roles of development agencies, if there are models that are successful, how can we support this and scale it up? How can we replicate it? I think we've identified so many great models that have been successful, and again, I'm going back to the question you asked, Upul, about how is the green revolution working? How can it give solution to the food demand and everything? අමතක කරන්න එපා මේ හරිත විප්ලවයට ආපු chemicals ආවේ මේ මිනිස්සු විනාශ කරන්න මේ ආයුධ හදපු මේ ලෝක යුද්ධෙන් ඉතුරු වෙච්ච chemical stock එකෙන් කියලා. right? එහෙමයි මේ ආසනික් ඒවාවේ, not that one scientist decided to go suddenly identified, okay, here's a problem, we need to increase yield, we need to increase food production. And ඒක තාම අපේ food production system එකේ conventional food production system එකේ හැම layer එකෙම මේ බාධක තියෙනවා. farmer කෙනෙක්ට seed එකක් register කරගන්න බෑ කියන්නේ. indigenous variety එකක්, species of indigenous seed species. හැම level එකට මේ බාධකේ තියෙනවා. I think මං හිතන්නේ එතනදී අපි ඇත්තටම question කරන්න ඕනේ why are they preventing this from every level, because these companies need to thrive. Look, if we have a bird's eye view, now we're taking the discourse to a completely different level, all because of what you asked. Monsanto, Syngenta, මේගොල්ලන්ට තමයි ලෝකේ ලොකුම අයිති. Monsanto has a private army. හැබැයි EU එකේ ඇහුවොත් EU has banned GMO seeds, but where are all these mother companies based? In Europe. Right? How? ඇයි අපේ රටේ ගොවියන්ව එන්න තව ණය උගුල් වලට පටලවලා causing generational inequality, generational poverty. These companies thrive, but in their own countries they have banned GMO seeds, and they say it with so much pride. Now, in Europe we have banned GMO seeds, but why have our countries become such an easy target? Right? It's time we started asking the hard questions. I think we are definitely in the path of asking those hard questions, but it's an uphill battle. But we're really happy to see such a big crowd here, sitting patiently to hear us speak about this.
Just add one thing, because I was in Philippines until yesterday. So there they talk about like globalization of agriculture. So how these drones are used, and how Monsanto and companies like Syngenta and those are so eager to use drones to pesticide. And how they are like, and they are talking about digitalization of agriculture, and which minimize the labors in agriculture, right? So එතකොට යාලට ඒ drones විකුණ ගන්න, ඒ දේවල් කරන්න like
robots.
Robots, right? So they need countries like us, and the government like us should support and to need to buy their machines and other things. They need money. So this is the whole thing that we need to understand once we talk about this. Why can't we become, is it possible for us to gain food security without using pesticide or agrochemicals? So this is something I just wanted